Hey guys, it's Jake here with eTrailer. Today we have a 2024 GMC Sierra 3500 and we're going to be taking a look at, I'm going to show you how to install the B&W Turnoverball Gooseneck Hitch. Now right off the bat, there's going to be many different gooseneck hitches available for the 2024 GMC 3500. What the biggest thing that's going to set this gooseneck hitch apart from the others is that when you're not using it, you simply pull the latch, which releases the ball, flip it over, and you can store it inside of the hitch and not have to worry about it being in the way. You can see that the top of our hitch is flush with the top of our corrugation here, and then whenever you're ready to use it, you simply flip it over, set it back down into place, and then latch the pin. It's going to have the similar features of many other gooseneck hitches out there. It'll come with safety chain loops integrated in the hitch. You do have to install them separately, but these will allow you to hook up your safety chains from your gooseneck trailer to be able to travel down the road safely. Now I'd say my favorite part about this hitch is going to be that you can take this gooseneck ball out and then install many accessories that B&W offers to fit inside of this square opening. Mainly, the biggest one that we typically have people looking for is going to be their B&W companion, whether it's the standard fifth wheel hitch or the sliding fifth wheel hitch. So you get the best of both worlds. You can have a gooseneck when you need it and then drop in the B&W companion and you can tow your fifth wheel trailer. The weight capacities of this hitch are going to be a max pin weight capacity of 7,500 pounds. That is the weight pushing down on the hitch or on the gooseneck ball itself. And then the max gross tow weight rating is going to be 30,000 pounds. Now with both of those numbers, just keep in mind you'll want to check with the owner's manual of your vehicle, year, make, model, and the submodel, and make sure that your vehicle is able to handle that. If it's not, you want to go with the lowest number between the two components. Now one thing I like to point out, again, that makes the B&W hitch a little bit different. I have a B&W hitch on my personal truck, and I really like that they put the latch handle inside. This is what pulls the pin to be able to flip the ball over or flip it up into place. You simply pull straight out and then twist it to the left, and it'll stay out. You drop the ball in place, simply pull it over and let it go. And that's going to lock the ball into place. Now when it comes to the installation, this is going to be a more tedious installation. I've installed many other types of goosenecks, including other B&Ws on other trucks, and this one is a little bit more complicated. But if you follow along with the video, I've got some tricks and stuff that will deviate a little bit from the instructions because it makes it quite a bit easier to get installed. I've installed it other ways before and it makes it very, very difficult. But if you follow along with me and the way that I do it, you'll have this hitch installed in no time. To begin our installation, we'll start by lowering our spare tires. You want to set that out of the way because it's going to give you a lot more room to work under here without it in the way. In addition to making ourselves more room, we're going to need to remove this heat shield. It will go back up into place. We'll need to remove this heat shield. This one will not be going back in place. We'll take a 13mm socket and remove the two bolts that are holding this heat shield in place. We'll set it off to the side. Now we'll use a 13mm wrench on top here to remove these bolts. There's going to be four, one here on the end, one on the other cross frame member, and then two on top of the frame rail. Now we can just remove it once we have those four bolts taken out. We need to come up inside of our bed and we need to measure from the end of our bed to the center 45 5/16. So measure that out. We'll put a mark on our bed. Usually I like to put a mark in the center of the center rib, but you still have to measure from side to side and make sure that is in fact the center of the truck. Now we're going to take a 4-inch hole saw. I use the center punch to punch out a little indent in the bed so that our drill bit does not walk. And we'll have a pilot drill bit in the center of our hole saw. And we'll start drilling out our hole. Once you get your hole drilled, you want to take a file and file off the edges, and then we're going to use a paint marker to coat that bare metal so we can help resist against rust and corrosion. Now for our next step, your instructions are going to tell you to put the one end of our bracketry on and then torque them down. What we're gonna do is we've installed a couple of these before, and it is much easier just to leave this bracket loose so you have a little bit of wiggle room. The problem is once you get it up in there, in the frame rail, it's very, very difficult to get these holes to line up with the factory holes if you have one side tightened and torqued. So all we'll need to do is take this, and it doesn't matter which side you're putting on first. You just want essentially to put a bracket on each end, and there's a seam weld in the pipe itself. You can see it right here. That is what you want facing down. You want it on the bottom or to be touching the bracket. So we'll slide our larger bolts through and then top each one of them off with a flange nut. Now before we show you putting in the rear rail, the rear rail is going to be so much easier to put in than the front one. But the front one, what you want to do is you want the nuts on your bolts to be facing the rear of the truck. You want to slide this rail, this is the one we pre-installed, slide it up over the frame. You want to pull down on the exhaust just a little bit, enough to slide this bar over top of it. And then again, while pulling down on the exhaust, you'll have to slide your second bracket up and in, take this rail, slide it over, and then slide this bracket up into place. It's really difficult to see while you're doing that all at the same time, but essentially you just need to do it in sort of like a puzzle, one piece at a time in order to get that assembly up there. Now we'll grab the rear rail and show you how it goes on. Now we're going to take our assembly, we'll slide it up over our frame rail, set it down. Then we can take our second bracket. This is the tricky part. Take our second bracket, you're gonna have to angle it down, slide it up over our frame, and you wanna have your bolts handy. I usually just slide them in my pocket, but we'll take those, slide them through the holes, like that, and then we'll slide a nut on each one of them. Now in preparation to get the centerpiece of our gooseneck lifted up in place, we're going to take the support bracket and hold it on the back side of this rail, take two long bolts, slide them in, and essentially you just want to slide them in long enough to where they're flush on the other side of this rail. And then once we lift that centerpiece up, we'll take these two bolts, push them through. We did that same exact setup on the forward side of our forward bar. For our center section, we're going to have a couple of carriage bolts that we'll have to install. Slide them in these little slots here. And then thread a flange nut on the back side of each one of them. We'll take a 13mm socket and snug those up. This just firms up the centerpiece. Now with an extra set of hands, we'll take our centerpiece and you want to slide it up into place. You're going to set it around the hat channel and then take our bolts here and slide them through the holes in the hitch. Now you can see the bolts that we had previously installed. We slid them through each of the holes in our openings. We're going to thread on a flange nut to hold those in place. Now with all of our hardware loosely installed underneath, we've got these shorter bolts that we'll need to install in the two holes down into the top of our frame rail. This is what I was referring to when I said it's very, very difficult to get these lined up when the brackets are all bolted tight together. We've had trouble with them before where if we tighten everything, we can't get these lined up properly. So we'll just take our time and thread a set of these bolts into each end of the brackets. Once you get all 8 of your bolts installed in the top of the frame rail, you want to take a 19mm wrench in order to snug them up. In my personal opinion, the ratcheting wrench is going to be the easiest. That's going to be really, really difficult, if possible at all, to be able to get a ratchet up in there with a socket, but these work great. Now we're going to come down back underneath our vehicle and we're going to snug down all of our hardware using a 24mm socket and a 24mm wrench. Now once you get everything snugged up, we'll want to come back and torque everything to the specifications and the instructions. And once we have all of our hardware torqued down to the specifications, we'll take our latch handle and we're going to put it on the inside here. We'll take the supplied bolt, the carriage bolt. It's going to be the shortest one in your kit, and a flange nut, and put it on the other side. Now we're going to take our drill with a pilot drill bit and come up to each one of our 4 holes for our safety chain loops. We're going to drill a pilot hole in the center of them, and then we're going to go up to the top of our bed and use a step bit to drill it out the rest of the way. Now up inside our bed, we'll take a step bit, use those pilot holes we drilled, and drill them out to 11/16 of an inch. Once you get your holes drilled out, you want to make sure that you test your safety chain loops, make sure they drop down nice and easy. Then we'll take a vacuum, clean up our area, and then coat our holes the same way that we coated the center one with some paint. Underneath our vehicle, we're going to take our 2 springs. You're going to have 4 total, but 2 of them will go on each U-bolt. You want your U-bolts to be dropped down through your bed, and we'll take the nut and thread it onto the bottom. Now we're going to take a 24mm socket and we're going to tighten each of these nuts up until the U-bolt is flush on the bottom. Put our heat shield back up into place and then reinstall our spare tire. Well guys, hopefully this video helped you decide whether or not the B&W Turnoverball Gooseneck Hitch is right for you in your 2024 GMC 3500.